The space station Korath 7 floated in the darkness between stars like a jewel made of metal and light. It was a place where many species came to trade, talk, and do business. Humans had only been allowed here for 3 years, ever since the day they first met the galactic community. They were still new, still learning the rules, and still treated like children who had wandered into a room full of adults. Daniel Harris wiped the grease from his hands and looked out the viewport of the cargo bay. He was a mechanic, a simple man who fixed engines and kept ships running. He had brought his 8-year-old daughter Katie with him on this trip because her mother had passed away 2 years ago and he had no one else to watch her. The delivery was supposed to be quick. Drop off the parts, pick up the payment, and go home. Katie sat on a crate nearby, playing with a small floating drone toy that Daniel had bought her at the last station. It hovered around her head, blinking with soft blue lights. She laughed and chased it with her hands, her brown hair bouncing as she moved. Daniel smiled at her. She was the only good thing left in his life. The cargo bay was located near the edge of the human zone, a small section of the station where humans were permitted to work and rest. Beyond that zone, the station belonged to other species, bigger species, more important species. Humans were told to stay in their area and not cause trouble. Katie's drone drifted a little too far. It floated through an open doorway and into the corridor beyond. She jumped off the crate and ran after it without thinking. Daniel did not see her go. He was checking the manifest on his datapad, making sure everything was in order. The corridor outside the human zone was wide and filled with aliens of many shapes and sizes. Some had scales, some had fur, and some had shells like insects. Katie stopped and stared at them with wide eyes. She had never seen so many different creatures in one place. The drone hovered just ahead, waiting for her. She ran forward to catch it. She did not see the tall figure stepping out of a side passage. She collided with something hard and cold, like running into a wall made of armor. She fell backward and landed on the floor. High Commander Velraxis of the Torvan Dominion looked down at the small creature that had touched her. Velraxis stood 7 feet tall, with a body covered in black and green plates like a giant insect. Her eyes were large and dark, and her face showed no emotion. She was one of the most powerful officers in the Torvan military. Her species held 3 seats on the Galactic Council. She had commanded fleets and crushed rebellions. She had never been touched by something so small and weak. Katie looked up at the alien with fear in her eyes. She opened her mouth to say, "Sorry." Velraxis did not give her the chance. She raised her armored forelimb and struck the child across the face. The blow was hard and fast. Katie flew backward and hit the floor. Blood poured from her mouth and nose. Her jaw hung at a wrong angle. She did not scream. She could not. She only lay there, broken and bleeding, while aliens walked past without stopping. A Torvain officer approached Velraxis and bowed. He glanced at the human child on the floor and then back at his commander. "Shall I summon medical assistance for the creature?" he asked. "Why would I waste resources on vermin?" Velraxis replied. Her voice was cold and sharp like breaking ice. "Let its keeper collect it. Perhaps this will teach the Deathworlders to control their offspring." She walked away without looking back. Daniel found his daughter 3 minutes later. He had heard nothing, seen nothing. He only knew that she was gone, and when he ran into the corridor calling her name, he found her lying in a pool of her own blood. He dropped to his knees and gathered her in his arms. She was breathing, but barely. Her small body shook with pain. "Katie," he whispered. "Katie, stay with me. Please stay with me." Station security arrived soon after. They were Nexari, a species of tall gray beings with long fingers and no expressions. They looked at the injured child and then at Daniel. "What happened here?" one of them asked. "Someone hit her," Daniel said. His voice was shaking. "Someone attacked my daughter." The security officers checked their records. They watched the footage from the station cameras. They saw everything. High Commander Velraxis striking a human child, the child falling, the commander walking away. "We cannot act," the lead officer said. Daniel stared at him. "What do you mean you cannot act? You saw what she did." "High Commander Velraxis holds the rank of Fleet Superior in the Torvan Dominion. She has diplomatic immunity. She is beyond our authority." She broke my daughter's face. "Your daughter is human. Humans have no legal standing under council law. The assault of a non-recognized species by a council member carries no penalty. There is nothing we can do." Daniel held Katie tighter. She whimpered in his arms. Around them, aliens continued to walk past. Some looked. Most did not. A few seemed amused. None offered help. A young human man pushed through the crowd. His name was Marcus Grant, and he worked as a journalist for a human news network. He had been on the station covering trade negotiations when he heard the commotion. He saw Daniel holding his bleeding child. He saw the security officers walking away. He raised his camera and began to record. "What is your name?" Marcus asked. "Daniel Harris." "What happened to your daughter?" Daniel told him. He told him everything. He told him about the alien who had struck a child and walked away laughing. He told him about the security officers who refused to help. He told him about the laws that said human life was worthless. Marcus recorded every word. Then he uploaded the footage to every human network he could reach. Within hours, the video had been seen by millions on Earth. Within days, every human in known space had watched it. They saw Katie's broken face. They saw the alien who had done it. They saw the galaxy's response, which was no response at all. The galactic community expected humans to complain quietly and then accept their place at the bottom. They expected protests and petitions that would be filed away and forgotten. They thought they knew what humans would do. They were wrong. In boardrooms and military bases across human space, men and women watched the footage in silence. They looked at the child bleeding on the floor of an alien station. They looked at the commander walking away without punishment, and something changed behind their eyes. The galaxy had made a mistake. They had touched a human child, and now they would learn what that meant. The council chamber in Geneva was silent. 50 of the most powerful people in human civilization sat around a long table, watching a screen that showed the face of a broken child. They had all seen the footage 100 times by now. They had seen the alien strike. They had seen the blood. They had seen the look on Daniel Harris's face as he held his daughter in his arms. Admiral Lisa Grant stood at the head of the table. She was 62 years old, with gray hair cut short and eyes that had seen too much. She had commanded ships in the Mars Uprising and the Colony Wars. She had thought those days were behind her. She had been wrong. "This is not just an assault on one child," she said. Her voice was calm but carried weight like stone. "This is a message. The galaxy is telling us that our lives do not matter, that our children can be beaten in the streets and no one will answer for it. If we accept this, we accept that humans are nothing." Ambassador Paul Bennett sat near the middle of the table. He was a thin man with careful eyes and a voice trained for negotiation. He had spent 3 years trying to build bridges with the alien species. He had believed in diplomacy. Now he was not sure what he believed. "I have filed formal protests through every channel available to us," Bennett said. "The Torvan rejected them without reading them. The Council Archiving Office lost our documents twice. The Judicial Committee told me that humans lack standing to bring charges against Council species. We have no legal path forward." "Then we make our own path," Admiral Grant said. The room stirred. People exchanged glances. Everyone knew what she meant, but no one wanted to say it out loud. "We are talking about acting against a Council species," Bennett said. "The Torvan have the largest military in known space. They have allies. They have been part of galactic civilization for 10,000 years. We have been part of it for 3 years. If we move against them, we could start a war we cannot win." "Can we win a peace where our children are prey?" Admiral Grant asked. No one answered. Far across the galaxy, High Commander Velraxis gave an interview. She sat in her command chair on her flagship, surrounded by officers who bowed whenever she looked at them. A reporter from the Galactic News Network had requested an audience, and she had agreed. She enjoyed talking about herself. "The Deathworlders have filed a complaint," the reporter said. He was a small creature with blue skin and 3 eyes. "They claim you assaulted a child." Velraxis made a sound that was her species' version of laughter. It sounded like rocks grinding together. "A child," she repeated. "It was barely the size of my arm. It ran into me like a blind animal. I taught it a lesson about respecting its betters. The Deathworlders should thank me for showing their offspring how to behave in civilized space." "Do you expect any consequences from your actions?" "Consequences? From humans?" She laughed again. "They are barely a species. They crawled out of their toxic world and stumbled into the stars like lost children. They have no fleets, no power, no standing. They will complain for a while, and then they will learn their place. They always do." The interview spread across the galaxy. Every species saw it. Most agreed with Velraxis. Humans were weak. Humans were new. Humans would learn to accept their position at the bottom of the ladder. But in the shadows, humans were doing something the galaxy did not expect. They were not complaining. They were planning. Commander Jake Thompson received his orders in a small room with no windows. He was 45 years old, with a face that looked like it had been carved from hard wood and eyes that gave away nothing. He had spent 20 years in the Terran Special Operations Division, doing jobs that never appeared in any official record. He was very good at his job. A woman in a gray suit handed him a folder. He opened it and saw a photograph of High Commander Velraxis. "This is the target," the woman said. "You are authorized to use any means necessary." "What are my rules of engagement?" "There are no rules. Officially, this mission does not exist. Unofficially, the entire government is behind you. Do what needs to be done." Thompson nodded and closed the folder. He did not ask questions. He did not need to. He began assembling his team. Each member was chosen for a specific skill. Sergeant Amy Cole was a combat specialist who could fight in any environment. Lieutenant Kevin Park was an infiltration expert who could bypass any security system. Dr. Hannah Wells was a medical officer who specialized in alien biology. There were 9 others, each one the best at what they did. They gathered on a ship called the Relentless. It was not listed in any official registry. As far as the galaxy knew, it did not exist. It was fast, quiet, and armed with weapons that humans had never revealed to their alien neighbors. Humanity had been playing dumb. When they first met the galactic community, they realized something important. The aliens underestimated them. They saw humans as primitive creatures from a dangerous world, too young and too weak to matter. Humans decided to let them keep thinking that. For 3 years, humans had hidden the true extent of their technology. They showed the galaxy old ships and simple weapons. They pretended to be impressed by alien science. They asked stupid questions and made harmless mistakes. All the while, they were learning, studying, preparing. Now it was time to show the galaxy what humans could really do. On Earth, Daniel Harris received a visit from 2 men in dark suits. They did not give their names. They sat in his living room while Katie slept in the next room, her face wrapped in bandages. "We know what happened to your daughter," one of them said. "We know how you feel. We want to ask you a question, and we want you to think carefully before you answer." Daniel looked at them with tired eyes. "What question? Do you want justice?" Daniel thought about his daughter's broken face. He thought about the alien who had done it. He thought about the security officers who had walked away. He thought about the laws that said his child's pain meant nothing. "Yes," he said, "I want justice." "Then take your daughter home. Hold her close. Keep her safe. And wait." The men stood and walked to the door. One of them paused and looked back. "The galaxy will learn that human children are not to be touched. Your daughter will be the last one they ever hurt. You have our word." They left without another sound. In orbit high above the Earth, the Relentless powered up its engines and slipped away into the darkness between stars. 12 humans sat in silence, checking their weapons and reviewing their plans. They did not speak about what they were going to do. They did not need to. They all knew. The hunt had begun. The Relentless moved through space like a ghost. It made no sound. It left no trail. The aliens who thought they knew everything about human technology would have been shocked to see it. The ship could bend light around itself and become invisible. It could jump through folded space in ways the Torvan had never imagined. It was a predator, and it was hunting. Commander Jake Thompson sat in the command chair, studying the screens in front of him. His team surrounded him, each one focused on their task. They had been traveling for 9 days, following the movements of High Commander Velraxis across Council space. She had left Station Korath 7 shortly after the incident and returned to Torvan territory. Now she was stationed at a military outpost on a small moon called Draxus 4. The moon was gray and lifeless, covered in dust and craters. The Torvan had built a supply base there, a collection of metal buildings surrounded by walls and defense turrets. It was far from any conflict zone, far from any threat. Velraxis had been sent there to oversee supply operations while the political situation calmed down. It was supposed to be a quiet posting. She had no idea what was coming. Sergeant Amy Cole checked her weapon for the 100th time. She was a small woman with short black hair and muscles built from years of combat training. She had grown up on a colony world where life was hard and survival was never certain. She had a daughter back home, a girl named Sophie who was just 1 year older than Katie Harris. "How many hostiles?" Cole asked. Lieutenant Kevin Park pulled up the scans on his screen. He was thin and quiet, with fingers that moved across controls like water. 17 Torvane soldiers on rotation, 3 automated defense turrets, 1 high commander who sleeps in the main building. Only 17? She does not expect trouble. No one has ever attacked a Torvan outpost before. She thinks she is safe. Cole smiled, but there was no warmth in it. She is wrong. The Relentless settled into orbit behind the moon, hidden from the outpost's sensors. For 6 days, the team watched and waited. They learned the patrol routes of every soldier. They memorized the shift changes down to the second. They identified the weak points in the wall and the blind spots in the turret coverage. They studied the main building where Velraxis slept, noting every entrance and exit. On the 7th day, Commander Thompson called the team together. "We go tonight," he said. 3 teams. Park's team disables the turrets. Cole's team handles the perimeter guards. My team breaches the main building and secures the target. No survivors, no witnesses, no evidence that we were ever here. "What about the soldiers?" someone asked. "They did not hurt the girl. They served the one who did. They would kill us without hesitation if they had the chance. We do not give them that chance." No one argued. They all understood. This was not a battle. This was an execution. The drop pods fell through the thin atmosphere of Draxus 4 in complete silence. The Torvan sensors did not detect them. The soldiers on patrol did not look up. The first sign of trouble came when the turrets suddenly went dark. Their systems shut down by a virus that Park had slipped into their network. By then, it was already too late. Cole moved through the base like a shadow. Her weapon was fitted with a silencer that reduced its sound to a soft whisper. The first guard died before he knew she was there. The second turned at the wrong moment and saw her face. She shot him before he could raise an alarm. Around her, her team worked with the same deadly precision. Each shot found its target. Each body fell without a sound. In 60 seconds, the perimeter was clear. Thompson's team breached the main building through a service entrance. They moved through the corridors in tactical formation, checking each room, clearing each corner. A Torvan officer stepped out of a door and found himself face to face with a human soldier. He opened his mouth to scream. Thompson shot him twice in the chest. The commander's quarters were at the end of the hall. The door was locked. Park cracked the security code in 12 seconds. The door slid open. Velraxis was asleep. She lay on a raised platform in the center of the room, her armored body still and quiet. Around her, screens displayed reports and communications from across Torvan space. She was dreaming of conquest and glory, of the day she would return to the Council as a hero. She woke to find a human standing over her with a weapon pointed at her face. For a moment, she did not understand what she was seeing. Humans were weak. Humans were prey. Humans did not come to Torvan space. Humans did not break into military outposts. This could not be happening. "What is this?" she demanded. Her voice was sharp but shaking. "Do you know who I am?" "Yes," Thompson said. His voice was calm and flat. "You are High Commander Velraxis of the Torvan Dominion. 3 weeks ago, you struck a human child named Katie Harris. You broke her jaw. You fractured her cheekbone. You left her bleeding on the floor of a space station." Velraxis stared at him. She remembered the incident. She remembered the small creature that had bumped into her. She remembered the satisfying sound of her strike landing. She had not thought about it since. "That was nothing," she said. "A correction of a lesser species. It meant nothing." "It meant everything." Thompson stepped closer. Behind him, his team secured the room. There was nowhere for Velraxis to run. There was no one coming to save her. "On Earth we have a saying," Thompson continued. "There are some things you do not touch. Our children are one of those things. When you struck that girl, you crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed. You made yourself an enemy of every human who has ever lived or ever will live." "You cannot do this," Velraxis said. Her voice was rising now. Fear crept into it. "I am a high commander. I have diplomatic immunity. The Council will destroy your species for this." "Maybe. Maybe not. But you will not be there to see it." He raised his weapon. "Wait," Velraxis said. "Wait. I can give you things. Information. Power. Whatever you want. Name your price." The price was already named. You just were not listening. He fired. The shot was clean and quick. Velraxis fell back onto her platform and did not move again. Thompson looked at her body for a long moment. Then he pulled out a blade. 10 minutes later, the team returned to the Relentless carrying a sealed container. Behind them, the outpost burned. Every building was destroyed. Every body was ash. There was no evidence that humans had ever been there. But there was a message, and soon the galaxy would hear it. The Galactic Council met once every month on Axiom Prime, a world at the center of known space. The planet was ancient, covered in cities that had stood for 10,000 years. At its heart stood the Great Chamber, a building so large that clouds formed inside its dome. Representatives from 47 species filled the chamber, sitting in seats arranged in circles that rose toward the ceiling like steps in a giant bowl. High Counselor Moraven of the Nexari Collective sat at the center, his gray robes flowing around him like water. He was old, even by the standards of his long-lived species. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had watched species join the council and fade away. He thought he had seen everything. He was wrong. The session began like any other. Trade disputes between the Corvan and the Yalathi, a border conflict near the Outer Rim, a proposal to adjust shipping lanes through neutral space. The representatives argued and debated, making deals in whispers and casting votes with gestures. No one noticed the ship that had entered orbit 3 hours earlier. No one detected the shuttle that descended through the atmosphere. No one stopped the small group of humans who approached the great chamber on foot. The doors of the chamber opened. Every head turned. Ambassador Paul Bennett walked into the room. He wore a dark suit that was clean and simple. His face showed no expression. Behind him walked 2 Marine honor guards in full-dress uniform, their steps perfectly matched. They carried no visible weapons. The chamber fell silent. This had never happened before. Humans had no speaking rights in the council. They were not permitted to enter the great chamber without invitation. They were not supposed to be here. Bennett walked down the center aisle toward the platform where Moravan sat. Species on either side watched him pass. The Torvan representatives stood up, their dark eyes filled with anger. The Corvan whispered to each other in their clicking language. The Yalathi pulled back in their seats as if afraid of contamination. Bennett stopped at the edge of the platform. He carried a sealed container in his hands. It was about the size of a small box, made of dark metal with no markings. "Ambassador Bennett," Moravan said. His voice echoed through the chamber. "You have no standing here. You have no right to enter this chamber. You must leave immediately." "I will leave when I have delivered my message," Bennett replied. His voice was calm but carried through the room like a bell. "The council will hear what I have to say." "Guards," Moravan said. "Remove the human." 2 Nexari guards stepped forward. They were tall and strong, trained to handle any disturbance. They reached for Bennett. The Marine on his left moved. No one saw exactly what happened. One moment the guards were standing. The next moment they were on the floor, unconscious but alive. The Marine returned to his position. His face had not changed. The chamber erupted in shouts. Species rose from their seats. The Torvan called for weapons. Moravan raised his hand for silence, but no one listened. Bennett raised his voice above the noise. "You will hear me." Something in his tone made them stop. One by one, the representatives fell silent and sat back down. Even the Torvan lowered their arms. They stared at Bennett with hatred, but they listened. 3 weeks ago, on Station Korath 7, a human child was assaulted by High Commander Velraxis of the Torvan Dominion. Bennett spoke slowly, letting each word sink in. The child was 8 years old. She had done nothing wrong. The commander struck her across the face, breaking her jaw and fracturing her cheekbone. She left the child bleeding on the floor and walked away. The Torvan lead representative rose from his seat. His name was Zarath, and he spoke for the Dominion in the council. This matter was already addressed. The human filed a complaint that was properly rejected. The child was in a restricted area. The commander acted within her rights. "Within her rights," Bennett repeated, "to break the face of a child. Humans have no legal standing. Your species is not recognized. The incident was regrettable but lawful. We filed complaints through proper channels. We were ignored. We requested a hearing. We were denied. We asked for justice. We received none." Bennett paused. "So we found our own." He placed the container on the platform in front of Moravan. He touched a button on the side. The container opened. Inside was the severed head of High Commander Velraxis. The chamber exploded. Representatives screamed and shouted. The Torvan rushed forward, crying out for blood. Some species fled toward the exits. Others stood frozen in shock. Moravan stared at the head with eyes that could not believe what they were seeing. Bennett did not move. He stood before the storm like a rock in a river. "Silence," he said. No one listened. "Silence," he said again, louder. The Marine on his right raised something in his hand. A device hummed, and every light in the chamber flickered. The shouting stopped. Everyone turned to look at Bennett. "You asked what happened," he said. "I will tell you. Your outpost on Draxus 4 is gone. 17 soldiers are dead. The commander is dead. No evidence was left behind. You will never find the ones who did this because they do not exist. They never existed, but they will come again if you give them reason to." Zarath stepped forward, his body shaking with rage. "This is an act of war. The Dominion will destroy your species. We will burn your worlds. We will wipe you from the stars." "You can try," Bennett said. "But before you make that decision, I suggest you consider something. 12 humans destroyed a fortified military outpost without losing a single soldier. Imagine what our entire fleet could do." He let the words hang in the air. "Humanity did not come here to apologize," he continued. "We came to deliver a warning. Every species in this chamber now knows what happens to those who harm human children. This is not a threat. It is a promise. Touch our children again, and we will respond. There will be no complaints. There will be no diplomacy. There will only be consequences." Moravin finally found his voice. "What do you want?" "We want recognition, full legal standing for all human citizens, the right to defend ourselves and our families, a seat on this council. Grant us these things, and we will be your allies. Refuse, and you will be our enemies." Bennett gestured toward the head on the platform. "The choice is yours." He turned and walked toward the exit. The Marines followed. No one moved to stop them. As he reached the doors, Bennett paused and looked back. "The Torvan called us Deathworlders because our planet is dangerous. They thought that made us weak. They were wrong. We are dangerous because our planet is dangerous. We have survived every threat nature could throw at us. We will survive you as well." He walked out. The doors closed behind him. In the great chamber, 47 species stared at the severed head of a commander who had thought she was untouchable. The galaxy would never be the same. The council debated for 9 days. The great chamber became a battlefield of words, threats, and desperate negotiations. Species that had been allies for centuries turned against each other. Old agreements crumbled. New alliances formed in whispers. The Torvan demanded war. Representative Zarath stood before the council day after day, calling for the destruction of humanity. His voice thundered through the chamber. His species had been insulted. Their honor had been stained. They would accept nothing less than the complete extermination of the Deathworlders. 3 species stood with them. The Kasari, bound to the Torvan by ancient treaties. The Vorath, who feared what they did not understand. The Drell, who simply hated humans for being different. Together, they commanded enough votes to push for war, but the other species were not so eager. The Nexari had watched the footage from Draxus 4. They had studied the evidence, or rather, the complete lack of evidence. A fortified outpost had been destroyed. 17 soldiers had been killed, and the only trace of the attackers was ash and silence. Their military analysts ran the numbers again and again. Each time they reached the same conclusion. Humans were far more dangerous than anyone had realized. The Corvan remembered their own history with the Torvan. They remembered the trade deals that always favored the Dominion. They remembered the border disputes that always ended with Corvan territory shrinking. They had no love for the insects who had bullied them for generations. The Yalathi were traders above all else. They calculated profit and loss. War with humanity would disrupt shipping lanes, damage economies, and cost lives. Peace with humanity would open new markets, create new opportunities, and cost nothing. The math was simple. One by one, species began to shift their positions. Some spoke openly in favor of granting humanity recognition. Others remained silent, but refused to support the call for war. The Torvan watched their coalition crumble with growing fury. On the 9th day, High Counselor Moraven called for a vote. "The motion before the council is as follows," he said. "Shall the human species be granted provisional membership in the Galactic Council with full legal protections for all citizens, the right to self-defense, and a seat in this chamber." The votes were cast in silence. Each representative touched their panel and made their choice. The numbers appeared on the central display for all to see. 26 species voted yes, 18 voted no, 3 abstained. The motion passed. Zarath rose from his seat. His body trembled with barely contained rage. "This is a betrayal," he said. "The Dominion will not forget. Those who sided with the Deathworlders will pay for their choice." "The Dominion will do what it wishes," Moravin replied. "But the Council has spoken. Humanity is now a recognized member of galactic civilization. Their citizens have legal standing. Their worlds have protection. Any species that attacks them will face the full response of the Council. Then the Dominion withdraws from the Council." A murmur ran through the chamber. This had not happened in 3,000 years. A founding member leaving the Council was unthinkable. Moravin's expression did not change. "That is your right, but before you leave, you should know that the Council will be opening an investigation into the Dominion's treatment of lesser species over the past century. Several complaints have been filed by species who were afraid to speak while the Torvan held power here. They are no longer afraid." Zarath stared at him for a long moment. Then he turned and walked out of the chamber. The Torvan seats sat empty behind him. The war that everyone expected never came. The Dominion rattled its weapons and made threats, but it did not attack. Perhaps they remembered what 12 humans had done to their outpost. Perhaps they wondered what a full human fleet could accomplish. Perhaps they simply decided that humans were not worth the trouble. Whatever the reason, they stayed in their own space and left humanity alone. On Earth, the news spread like fire. Humanity had been recognized. Humanity had a voice. Humanity had won. Celebrations erupted in cities around the world. People danced in the streets. They raised glasses and cheered. For the first time in 3 years, humans felt like they belonged among the stars. Ambassador Paul Bennett gave a speech that was broadcast across every network. He stood before a crowd of thousands, with cameras sending his image to every corner of human space. "Today marks a new chapter in our history," he said. "We are no longer outsiders. We are no longer visitors. We are members of the galactic community, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. We will be good neighbors. We will be fair partners. We will seek peace and friendship with all who offer it." He paused and let his voice grow quiet. "But let no species forget what brought us here. A child was harmed. The galaxy looked away. We did not look away. We will never look away when our people are in danger. Our children are sacred. Our families are protected. This is not a policy. It is who we are." The crowd roared its approval. In a small house on the outskirts of Denver, Daniel Harris sat with his daughter Katie on his lap. Her face was healing. The doctor said she would make a full recovery. The scars would fade in time. She still had nightmares sometimes, but they were becoming less frequent. They watched the speech together on the living room screen. Katie did not fully understand what was happening, but she could tell it was important. She could see her father smiling. "Daddy," she said, "are the aliens going to be nice now?" Daniel held her a little tighter. "Yes, sweetheart. They are going to be nice now." "Why?" He thought about how to answer. He thought about the Relentless and its silent crew. He thought about Commander Thompson and the sealed container. He thought about all the things that had happened in the darkness while the galaxy was not watching. Because sometimes, when people are mean, someone has to teach them that being mean has consequences, and we taught them. Katie nodded. She did not need to know the details. She only needed to know that she was safe. Far away, on a space station at the edge of explored space, an alien merchant prepared for a meeting with a human trader. The merchant was a Corvan, a species known for their sharp deals and clever tricks. He had planned to cheat the human, to offer a low price for valuable cargo and pocket the difference. But as the human entered his office, the Corvan hesitated. He looked at the Deathworlder with new eyes. He remembered the stories that were spreading across the galaxy, stories of what happened to those who crossed humanity, stories of outposts burning and commanders falling, stories of humans who smiled and traded fairly, but who carried something cold and dangerous behind their eyes. The merchant decided to offer a fair price. The human accepted, shook his hand, and left without incident. In the shadows, the galaxy had learned a new truth. Humans were not to be feared because they were cruel. Humans were to be feared because they cared. They cared about their children. They cared about their families. They cared about each other. And there was nothing in the universe more dangerous than a species that would burn worlds to protect what it loved. The Torvan had forgotten this lesson. They would remember it now. The whole galaxy would remember it. And as human ships spread further and further into the unknown, carrying traders and explorers and families looking for new homes, every species they met already knew one thing about them. Their children were sacred, and anyone who forgot that would learn the lesson the hard way.